So this is my garage gym, and currently, I'll be honest with you, it's a pretty basic setup and not always the most pleasant place to train, especially in the middle of February, but I've got big plans. But more about that later. So it's currently Monday morning and I'm off work, but because I'm on call this weekend at the hospital, I've decided to sort of front load my training for the start of the week. Therefore, this morning I'll be starting off with a 10k progression run, and then later this afternoon I'll be hitting the garage gym, doing a full body session and talking you through those big plans that I have for it, to hopefully try and turn it into the perfect home gym for someone who runs, lifts, does Hyroxes and everything in between. All back from my run, and I ended up doing 11 kilometers in the end, but the actual tough bit of the workout was the 3x3 kilometer progression run sandwiched in the middle of a warm-up and a cool down. But I'll put the details somewhere up here, and I'm just having a post-run snack at the moment. So first coffee of the day and just a bowl of some dried apricots. But yeah, home gym. So why do I want to transform my garage into the perfect gym for someone who runs and lifts? Well, I've got a few different answers to that question. So first off, I just think it's really cool to have your own home gym, and it's something that I'd thought about for years and years before Lil and I eventually bought this house around 4 years ago now. And one of the first big purchases that I made when we moved into this house was dropping about £2,000 on all the equipment that you can see in there now. So a power rack, a barbell, some weights, a bench, and a few other bits and bobs. But with the benefit of hindsight, I was probably a little naive and jumped the gun in buying all that equipment before making larger structural changes to the garage itself. But secondly, and most importantly, it just feels like I lead a really busy life, and having a well-equipped and functional home gym on my own property, I think would massively reduce the friction involved in fitting in a workout around a hectic week. Like right now, I run this YouTube channel by myself, I have a wife, I occasionally have a social life, and I'm a doctor training to be an anaesthetist with some pretty serious postgraduate exams coming up in the next year. So the last thing that I want to do when I come back from a busy shift is head to that home gym, especially in the middle of February. So like most other people, I end up driving about 15 minutes to the local commercial gym, typically in the evenings during peak hours, and queuing to get bits of equipment. And it's just a massive waste of time. And finally, I want a space where two people can work out at the same time, be it Lil or a friend of mine, and also somewhere that I can film content for this channel. So I'm gonna finish this coffee, grab some lunch, and then I'm gonna hit a full body session in the garage, and I'll talk you through my plans. So very much like there being 3 reasons why I wanted to do at my garage gym, I envisaged that process happening in 3 distinct stages. And at the time of filming this video, I'm about halfway through the first stage, which is cleaning it up. So at the moment, it's full of all sorts of crap. There's a mower here, there's some weed killer there and some grass seed. We've got a tent here. This is a door from our dining room. It came off about 3 years ago, and I thought, oh, you know what, just for the next couple of weeks, I'll leave it in the garage and I'll sort that out in a month or 2. 3 years later. But in its current state, it's actually much cleaner than for most of the time that we've been here, because a few weeks ago, I spent a whole weekend clearing it out, pulling out all the old defunct electrics and binning a load of rubbish that had just been sat here idle for years and years. So several trips to the tip later, and this is where we're at. And this corner represents the only non-gym equipment left in the garage, so I need to figure out what I'm going to do with this, and then we can move on to stage 2. But first off, let me get some squats out of the way. watched my last video know that for the last 3 weeks or so, I've switched to the low bar squat instead of the high bar squat in preparation for my first powerlifting competition in like almost 5 years. And although I was a little bit rusty the first few times I hit that low bar position, I'm really starting to find my groove. So 4x8 with 130 kilograms on the bar, let's get after it. So squats all over and done with. I'm going to do some pause bench next, then some overhead press, and then I think I'll finish with like a chin up and lateral raise complex. But yeah, realistically, phase 1 of the garage renovation is not the sticking point of this whole project. The reason it's taken me upwards of 3 years to even contemplate doing this renovation is phase 2. And that involves turning this semi-derelict garage into a viable indoor space. So by that, I mean structurally sound, watertight, electrified, and possibly even heated. And when we first moved into this house, the roof of the garage was like an old tin roof, like corrugated sheets of metal. It was not watertight in any way. One of the first things that we did was we dropped about £1,500 on getting a fiberglass roof fitted, which in my head made it watertight. But very shortly after, I realised that the window frames were rotting, and very shortly after that, panes of glass fell out. And then 3 years passed and we're in the situation that we're in now. And all these bricks, well, a lot of mortar between them is pretty much crumbling apart. So much so that I can see clear air between some of the bricks. I need to get someone out that knows what they're doing to have a look at that wall and hopefully fix it for me at hopefully not too great an expense. And up to this point, I just haven't managed to pull the trigger. So I'm hoping that when I press publish on this video, that will act as the motivation that I need and it will really give me a kick up the arse to get things going. So it's not like I need to explain to you guys why it's so important to have a watertight home gym, especially when I'm trying to get electrified. But just in terms of the upkeep of your gym equipment, like I've got a Cerakote Ohio bar here from Rogue, which was pretty expensive, and I mean, it's not so bad, but there's a little bit of rust here. And these Cerakotes are meant to be one of the most water resistant bars out there, and granted I probably could have taken care of it a little bit better. If I'm going to drop a whole load of cash on even more expensive gym equipment, then you want to protect your investment. Right, final set of bench, let's go. When I first started with this gym equipment a few years ago, it was only 1 year after my last powerlifting competition back in 2019. Shortly after that competition, I'd had shoulder surgery, immediately followed by the COVID pandemic, which shut down all the gyms. Needless to say, I lost all of my gains and I became very, very weak. In my head, naively, I thought, oh, I'll be back to those strength levels in no time, and bought 220 kilos worth of weight. The number of times that I've lifted anything on a barbell above that, I think probably 3 times in my entire life. So what business I had ordering that amount of weight for a home gym at potentially the weakest point in my adult life, I have no idea. But it's funny because despite that fact, I seem to have an overwhelming urge every time I go on one of these gym equipment's websites to buy more weight. Why is that? pretty decent day's training, and I was particularly happy to get 2 quality sessions in today, being on call this weekend. But anyway, finally, let's talk about phase 3, the most interesting part of the garage renovation. So interior design and wicked workout equipment. And before I ever bought my first house, this is what I envisaged when I thought about making my own garage gym. At the end of the day, I've got a pretty modest budget. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those creators that Gymshark reached out to completely bankroll this project. At least not yet, Ben Francis if you're watching. So instead of matte black panels, perfect lighting and floor-to-ceiling mirrors, think more white masonry paint and plywood. But one of my reasons for wanting to do up the gym in the first place is that so me and Lil could work out in there at the same time. So in order to facilitate that, I'd need another barbell, possibly a wall-mounted rack if not a full power rack, another deadlift platform and probably a few extra bumpers. And then of course you've got the accessories, adjustable dumbbells, barbell and weight storage, maybe some rubber bands, those sorts of things. And the final piece of the puzzle, being someone that likes to run, lift and now do Hyroxes, is some cardio equipment. I'm thinking ski erg, a rower, maybe a watt bike. Probably not all 3 at the same time, I'm pretty tight for space, but one of those. But now's the time that I'd really appreciate some advice from any of you guys that have done your own home gym renovations. Particularly tips about cost saving measures and making the most of limited space. But really, any and all advice is welcome, so leave it down below in the comments. But otherwise, that's everything for today guys. So expect more videos in future about my progress with the garage, and for more running, lifting and general fitness content, subscribe down below, and I'll see you again next time.